Law number 5, the law of E.F. Hutton. And the law of E.F. Hutton says, when the real leader speaks, everybody listens. Isn't that the truth? When the real leader speaks, the people around you are going to listen. Now let me give you an example of that I've already taught a little bit earlier when I was talking to you about Claude. Remember the law of influence? The law of influence and the law of E.F. Hutton are cousins, okay? They're close. It's not the same law, but they connect or they relate. And when I told you about Claude and Hillham and the fact that he would make the motion and Benny would second it, Claude was the E.F. Hutton of the church, okay? Now, if you remember the commercial, this was on a few years ago, of the old E.F. Hutton commercial, and when E.F. Hutton speaks, and they might be busy, everybody would stop and everybody would listen to whatever they were going to say. What I want you to understand is that you need to go back to your church, you need to go back to your business, and you need to begin to find the E.F. Huttons in your organization. Now, let me kind of help you find them. In other words, you need to find the people that really do, when they speak, influence and affect people. Now, some of these E.F. Huttons will be positive E.F. Huttons. And some of these E.F. Huttons will be negative E.F. Huttons. Some of them are going to bless you, some of them are going to curse you. Are you with me? But let me talk to you about how do you find those influencers? How do you find those E.F. Huttons in your organizations? How do you know where they are? For example, I had one time in a leadership conference, I had somebody raise their hand. They asked me this question. They said, John, how do I know the influencers? Well, if you're not sure who they are, you could ask some questions like, go to people in your organizations and ask questions like, if you really wanted to get something started in this organization, who would you go see? That'll tell you a lot. Or if you wanted to get something stopped in this organization, who would you go see? That'll tell you a lot. In other words, you've got to be able to find the influencers, and one of the quickest ways to find the influencers, if I came to your business or if I came to your organization, I could very quickly find or discover the people that are the influencers. And let me show you what I mean. Let's say right down here on this front row, let's say this is my church board right here, okay? Let's say this is my church board, and let's say that Bill here is making a presentation. He wants to pave the parking lot, okay? He wants to spend $10,000 to pave the parking lot. Okay, so Bill's making the presentation, but let's say that Deborah is the E.F. Hutton of the church, okay? She's the influencer. She's the Claudia. Okay, she's the E.F. Hutton. So now, while Bill is making the presentation, we're all sitting around the table, we're listening to Bill make the presentation. While we're listening to Bill make the presentation, let me tell you what every one of us in the room are doing. While we're listening to Bill, we're watching Deborah. Now let me share this with you because this is keen insight. Whenever you want to find out who the E.F. Hutton is in any group, anytime you want to find out who the influencer is in any group, all you have to do is watch the people in that group and look at who they are looking at, especially when a key decision is going to be made. Because I promise you, if a key decision is about to be made, while Bill is making the presentation, the rest of us are sitting around, and while Bill is making the presentation, what are the rest of us doing? We're watching Deborah. The reason we're watching Deborah is because she's the E.F. Hutton of the group. She's the influencer. She's the true leader. Now, we're watching her because we're wanting her to give us a signal of whether we're for this or against this. Huh? Doesn't this make sense? So as Bill's talking about the parking lot and how we need the parking lot and how good it will look when the paved parking lot is done and how he's tired of walking in chuck holes and dirt and all that stuff. While he's doing that, we're watching Deborah. And if Deborah starts nodding, what do the rest of us start doing? We start nodding. Now, Bill watches me nod across the table and he says, oh, good. I think they're for it. Then Bill says, I think I'm doing a good job with this presentation. No. Bill, it's not whether you do a good job or a bad job with the presentation. It's whether Deborah, E.F. Hutton, likes it. You see, she's the one that's going to give us the signal. Just as if Bill's making the presentation and Deborah's sitting there and she is shaking her head and she's thinking that $10,000 could be sent for missions and all kind of wonderful things, and we're not going to pave the parking lot. And so when Deborah starts shaking her head, what do the rest of us do? We start shaking our head, and Bill said, boy, I must be doing a terrible presentation. No, Bill, you may be doing a good presentation. That isn't the issue. The issue is that Deborah, the E.F. Hutton, doesn't like the idea. In fact, if Bill was really smart, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. If Bill was really smart, he'd take Deborah out to lunch. In other words, what Bill would do is he would take the real influencer, he would take the E.F. Hutton out to lunch and get her opinion. In fact, if Bill was really smart, he would stand up and he'd say, you know, this presentation I'm going to make, I think it's really sound, but before I wanted to make the board, I wanted to make sure it was sound. And so Deborah and I had lunch together the other day, and she likes it too. Well, if that's the case, here's the good news. We don't even need to hear the presentation. Hey, we can go home early tonight and watch Monday Night Football. You know what I'm saying? Or whatever. And see, what happens is, so many times we do not understand what true influence is like, and we don't truly understand how to find the influencers. The eyes, of course, are the window of the soul. But you always follow the eyes. I mean, when we're done here this evening, and maybe you're going to go to dinner, I can promise you in a group of people, somebody's going to help make the decision where you go to dinner. And I want to say this, if I was in the group, you could just watch the people. You see, people will unconsciously look at the real decision maker. They always do. They'll look kind of waiting for the decision to be made. Cute story. I was speaking at Robert Schuller's conference last January. And when I walked out to speak, right on the front row were 4 college kids. And I didn't know they were college kids at the time, except they looked that age. But as soon as I got to speak, these 4 boys, they put up a sign. And the sign said, you know, have you seen the signs, you know, we'll work for food, that kind of a deal. Well, this sign said, we'll buy breakfast, will you go? And of course I looked at them and I said, see me right after we're done here, right after we're done. And I couldn't go to that time with them. But I found out they were in college in Seattle, and so I said, I'll tell you what, guys, it's no problem. I'm going to be in Seattle in a couple of months. I'll meet you, and Linda set it up, and I had breakfast with the boys. Now, they came. They were so excited. I mean, they had their tape recorders, their legal pads, and they were ready to ask questions. And so that we sat down at the table, and we're getting ready to have our breakfast together. Really, I'm getting ready to have breakfast. They're getting ready to ask questions. I have my life prioritized. And there are 4 boys. There are 4 boys, and 3 of the boys, their names start with a J. There was a James, a Jeff, and a Jeremy, and then there was a Tom. And so I said, okay, don't tell me who Tom is. I said, I got 3 J's and a T here. I said, let me guess which one of you is Tom. And within 5 seconds, I pointed to one of the kids. I said, you're Tom. And they go, how did you know that? Well, it's very simple. As soon as I said, I'm going to guess which one of you is Tom, let me figure this out. 3 of the boys, the Jeff, James, and Jeremy, their eyes went right over to Tom. And you should have seen Tom's eyes. I looked at Tom. Here's the way Tom looked. Tom goes. All I had to do is follow the eyes. Now, watch the eyes in a crowd, and you'll always pick up on the dynamic of who the E.F. Hutton is, who the real leader is. Now, what I'm about to teach you about positional leaders and real leaders is very important. Because we have been taught, we have trouble with this a little bit, because we've been taught that leadership is title and position. We've already discussed that. I don't need to discuss that anymore, except that many people think that if you get the title, if you get the position, if you get the office, if you get the nameplate, if you're somewhere on an organizational chart at the top, that somehow that makes you the leader. So let me describe the difference between a positional leader and a real leader. Positional leaders have a title, but not always a following. I see it all the time. I see all kind of people that have positions in leadership, but there's nobody following them. Where the real leader Real leaders, they have a following, but not always a title. Positional leaders influence positional people. I've watched this very, very much. I love to watch a positional leader with a positional leader. They're calling each other doctor and they're doing all this palaver. It's so funny. It just cracks me up. They're both living in la land. But they're wanting to make sure that they give respect to the title and the position, all this. Well, positional leaders, the only people they very seldom affect are either positional leaders, or they do also affect what I call positional followers. These are the followers who would like that position. Whereas the real leaders, they influence everyone. And that's how you know the real leaders. The E.F. Huttons, they influence everyone. So here what happens. Here comes a pastor, and he comes to his church the first Sunday, and he preaches a message, and a few months later go by, and the people aren't following. And he's frustrated. Because, he wants the people to follow him. And so, he doesn't know what to do because he's been taught that leadership is position. He doesn't understand the E.F. Hutton law of leadership. He doesn't understand that real leaders and positional leaders are different. And so what do we do when we're positional leaders and people aren't following us? What we do is we get in the pulpit and we look at our congregation and say, now folks, listen to me. Listen to me. I'm the leader. Positional leaders are always declaring themselves. I'm the leader. Can I tell you something? If you have to tell people you're the leader, you're not. Because positional leaders never have to declare their leadership. Do you know why they don't have to declare their leadership? It's because they got people following them. They're not frustrated. People are following them. But those who have to declare that they're the leader and get up and make the statement, come on folks, I'm the leader, follow me. Or I love these people who say, well, the manual says I'm the chairman of the board. Right here, see, I'm the chairman of the board. Who cares? Get a life. You see, the chairman of the board, you know what, if you're the chairman of the board, all that means is you have the privilege of opening up the board meeting. And then the real leaders will take over. That's what happened to me at Hillham. All I did is I just threw it out there, and as soon as I threw it out there, here comes Claude. He's ready to take over. Why? Because he's the E.F. Hutton. And if you have to tell people that you're the leader, you're not.